take back control.
Tuesday night. Tuesday?
Before we get into kind of the overall presentation and everything, I want to ask everybody here a quick question. And this is what I always like to ask because to me, it gets kind of our mind in the right place when it comes to the concept we're going to be talking about. And that question is this, is what in life do you think that you should control or want to control? Now, there's three things that I believe that we all should want to control in our lives. And a lot of us, I'll be honest, don't control these things, or we might only control one, maybe two if you're lucky. But as we go through this presentation, you're going to understand why you want to control all three of these. Now, the first one that everybody thinks about is going to be something like money, right? Chris said right there. Yes, we want to control money because money is that one thing that, by the way, it comes and goes. But if we do not control money in our lives, almost guaranteed somebody else is going to be controlling our money for us. Think of a 401k. When you give that to the mutual fund manager, the 401k provider or manager or custodian, they call it, they're managing your money. They control your money. By the way, the IRS also controls your money. So we want to control money because it is just a tool that allows us to get the results that we want to have in life. But the other thing that a lot of people want to control, and we should want to control, and Raphael says health. Yes, absolutely health. And so one of the other things that you want to control is time, because money can come and go, by the way. But time, once it's gone, it does not come back. So we want to control time. And for me, by the way, personally, time is my biggest thing that I want to control in my life. Because if you want to control time, what do you got to control first? Money, right? Money. Now, a lot of us, we don't really understand controlling time because guess what? If you have an employer, right, they control your time oftentimes. If you give time away to other things, social media, all that kind of stuff, you're not really controlling your time. So you want to make sure we control time. But these are the two big things. But before you can control time and money, there's one big thing that you got to control first. And this is the big missing piece for most people. And that is your mindset, your knowledge, what's going on up here. Because if you don't control what's going on in your mind, which by the way, during our early part of our lives, we don't do that. But if you don't control your mind, somebody else is going to be controlling it for you. That's called subconscious programming. How do you think about money? What do you believe about, money or time? One of those beliefs that you have that might be limiting you, you got to control what's going on up here. And by the way, that can be a challenge. But as we go through this presentation, I am going to be challenging the way that you think about money, which is your mindset. Now, I want to share this quote. This is a quote that here at the BYOB team that we like. And this quote is by Will Rogers. And it says, "The problem in America isn't so much what people don't know. It's what people think they know that just isn't so." So that means we have beliefs that are limiting us. So as we go through this, I'm going to come back to this quote at the very end, and hopefully it makes some sense. Now, I want you to think about this. Let's say that you have 100 18-year-old kids, and you put them into a room and you go through and ask every single one of these 18-year-olds, where will you be at the age of retirement? What do you think they're going to say? Are they going to say, I'm going to be broke and poor? I'm going to be struggling? Of course not. They're going to say, I'm going to be successful, wealthy, financially free, all that kind of stuff. But here's the reality of this. If you fast forward to the age of 65, age of retirement, out of those 100 18-year-olds, only five out of 100 people will be financially secure at the age of retirement. That is crazy to me when we live in North America, the land of abundance, right, and opportunity, yet only 5 people are financially secure. It's kind of crazy, but that's coming from the Social Security Administration. So the question is like, do you want to be one of the 5%? Because the concept we're going to be talking about here today can help you be one of those 5%. And to do that, we've got to look at doing something a bit differently. And what we're going to be talking about here is doing something a bit differently. Okay. Now, real quick, some of you don't know who I am. Obviously, my name is Brian Fouts. And I started out life in the traditional path. That's my degree that I got in college. That's what I did. So corporate America job in construction management and business, WSU, go Cougs, if you guys know that. I have not touched that degree in over 10 years. So I started my life out kind of the hard way. I was raised lower class, lower income. I was told to follow that traditional path. Great family, my parents still together, all that kind of stuff, but we never talked about money. And so I would never really thought about it. And so I was told, go to school, get a good job, get a corporate job, which is exactly what I did, 401k, all that kind of stuff, had the house with the mortgage, had the growing family with all the debt saddled on me. And I was told I had the American dream, but it felt like the American nightmare because I always felt like I was always chasing the dollars. I always was like, just, just felt like I was not where I should be. Felt like I was always just waiting for that next paycheck, as an example. And at one point, I was at a doctor's office, read this article on finances, and it said that the millionaires know their net worth, but the average person does not. I'm like, okay, guess which one I am. So I went and did the math as to what my net worth was after 10 years in corporate America. I had a negative net worth. I was like, what the heck is going on? And so I didn't really know kind of what to do. But at that point in time, this was my grandfather. He had worked really hard, pillar of the community kind of guy, and he was getting ready to retire, and he did retire. He retired, but he was in his late 60s, worked really hard, was excited for retirement, all that kind of stuff. And then within a couple of years, he got real sick, Parkinson's, leukemia, kidney failure, dialysis. And right before he passed away, and this was very quick, he told me, "Live your life now, don't wait." And so that kind of led me to changing, and I left my corporate job, got into entrepreneurship, got into what we're going to be talking about here today. Built some businesses, had some that didn't do well. This one did well. This was in 2021. This business did over 2 million in revenue. And one of the main key components of that business was what we're talking about here today. So I really believe in this. I've been teaching this for quite some time. But by changing that mindset, by the way, and starting to learn to think differently about money, it allowed me to do a lot of fun things in my life since then. I like experiences. What money's It's fine, but I like experiences. So my family and I, we've traveled. We've done 5 weeks in an RV, spent, a month and a half in Hawaii and a month over in Alaska at our property there. Done a lot of fun things. But one of the things that I've really been fortunate to do is teach this concept, how I've used it and how other people use it, and help other people do this concept. So I've been able to speak on, very high level stages in front of very successful people. And that's what I love to do, by the way. If you guys can't tell, I love doing this. I talk kind of fast when I get excited. So I'm going to try to slow it down. But that's what we're going to be talking about here today. But I want you to understand one thing about this concept, though, is that it's not new. This thing has been around for over 150, 200 years, something like that. Been around a long time. But who else is talking about this? Well, you guys probably have heard of Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He talks about it in his book, Second Chance. And by the way, I've worked with a lot of Robert Kiyosaki's advisors personally. I've worked with them. One of his advisors was my mentor. That's how I learned about this and how I got mentored. Tony Robbins, been to some of his events, walked on fire, all that kind of stuff. He talks about in his book, Money Master the Game. And of course, one of the pillar books on this strategy is Becoming Your Own Banker by R. Nelson Nash. I recommend these books, by the way. I recommend them. They're very good, especially on the mindset and financial knowledge side of it. Then, of course, we've got my friends and mentors, Brent Kessler and Chris Naugle, mapping out the millionaire mystery. And then Chris Naugle has also the Private Money Guide. Now, since this has been around for a long time, who has been using this strategy through history? Well, it's been used by quite a few people. So Jim Harbaugh, he was at one point one of college football's top paid coaches, but he was paid through the infinite banking concept. And if you ever want to, me to tell you why they did that, it's pretty cool why they did that. But he was paid through this concept. This guy, you guys maybe remember him. Hopefully he remembers himself, Joe Biden, so former president. He has 6 of these policies, these strategies in place. Walt Disney. So Walt Disney, it's a cool story. So he could not get financing to start Disneyland. He went to 70 banks. They all rejected him, but he had this strategy in place and he used it to start Disneyland. So we might not have Disneyland as we know it today without this concept. Ray Kroc, he's the one that partnered with McDonald's brothers, ended up taking over McDonald's, and he's the one that scaled McDonald's. But for the first 8 years, he needed cash, but he couldn't get any financing. So he used this concept to fund the growth of McDonald's, which is kind of crazy to think about how big McDonald's is today. The Pampered Chef, same thing. She borrowed from this policy, from this concept to create the Pampered Chef. And of course, now Warren Buffett has it for, I think it's worth billions of dollars, kind of crazy. But then a lot of wealthy families have been using this for a long time. The JPs, Morgans, Vanderbilts, Rockefellers. Rockefellers, by the way, have been doing this since the 80s or 90s. So that's how one of the ways they're building wealth. So a lot of people have been using this. But here's the thing we want to think about. What's it going to do for you? Okay, so let's go through a few things of what this concept will do for you. So the first thing is that it creates day one, by the way, not year 40, but day one, it creates guaranteed tax-free generational wealth. It allows your money to grow uninterrupted compounding for the rest of your life with guarantees while using that money somewhere else. So uninterrupted growth of your money Pretty cool. Does the market do that? Does Bitcoin do that? No, it does not. This does. It takes control away from the big banks, from corporate America, Wall Street, and puts that control into your hands. That is a big, big piece of this concept and why people love it. It also protects your money. If you're going to make money, you want to protect it as well. So it protects your money from lawsuits, bankruptcies, divorce, court orders, creditors in most states. It's not every state, it's most states, by the way, because this is state specific. But very importantly, it allows you to be the bank for things you may normally use a bank for. So things like real estate investing, college, cars, homes, investments in other strategies, retirement. But it does that while having all of the benefits listed above, not one or the other. It does all of these at the exact same time. So keep these things in mind as we go through this presentation. Now, I kind of want to touch on this slide real quick. It's kind of funny. So when it comes to mindset, as we go through life, we are programmed or taught to think a certain way around money. So I want to do an analogy. So this is called the backwards bicycle. You can go and Google the video. It's hilarious. And in the video, there's this bicycle. And when you turn the handlebars to the left, the wheel goes to the right. So it's the opposite of a regular bicycle. So the gentleman that is in the video, he has learned how to ride a regular bicycle, like all of us, most likely. It's pretty simple. You don't ride a bicycle for 5 years, you can hop on, still ride the bike. This gentleman, he goes and hops on the backwards bicycle and he immediately falls over. He cannot ride the thing because he's trying to do it, and his programming is for a regular bicycle. But guess what happens? As he practices the backwards bicycle, eventually he can ride the backwards bicycle. It takes him some time to do it, but now he can ride that thing. Now, guess what happens though when he goes to a regular bicycle now again? Well, he's reprogrammed his mind around the backwards bicycle. So the regular one, now he's falling over there. Why am I saying this? So when it comes to money, it's the same thing. We've learned a way about money, but now we're going to challenge that belief. Once you learn a new way of money and how it really works, it sometimes is very hard to go back to the old way of thinking around money. So just want to keep that in mind, but really funny video. Go look it up, called the backwards bicycle. All right, so some quick mysteries around money. So what is the definition of money as we go through this presentation? It's just a means of exchange, okay? I'm not going to get into fiat currency and gold backed and all that kind of, and the history of money, but it's just a means of exchange. I want you to understand this. Are your dollars worth more today or in the future? Well, they're worth more today than in the future, because if you had a dollar bill 20 years ago and went to a candy store, how much could you get versus today? Very different. Okay, so your money is worth more today. So you want to use your money as much as possible today, not down the road. Will taxes go up or down? Historically, they have not gone down. They go up over time. So when you think about your traditional 401k, IRA, retirement accounts, things like that, you can't use that money today. You got to use it down the road. Well, guess what? That money's worth less down the road. Hopefully it has grown in whatever account it's in. And also now there's more taxes instead of today. So just keep these things in mind, because we want to be able to use our money as much as possible today and not pay taxes on it down the road and still use it throughout that time frame. So this is a very different concept. It challenges the way that we have been taught around how to save money, retirement, all that kind of stuff. So now we're talking about being our own bank, becoming your own banker through the infinite banking concept. We have to understand how money flows. So what I want to do is I want to use an example of a traditional transaction that most of us are familiar with. And I'm going to use a car, because most of us have purchased a car, whether you financed it, paid cash, doesn't really matter. Let's look at a car. Now, in this example, let's just say we're going to go buy a $25,000 car and we have cash in the bank. So what are we going to do? We're going to go over to the bank, go and take the cash out and buy the car. Okay. But what if the banker says, hey, wait a second, Brian, before you do that, I want to propose something to you. What if instead of you taking the cash out, you leave the cash in the bank and I give you 4% on that money, and then I give you a loan of $25,000 with your cash as the collateral, and I'll give you a loan at 6%, and we'll do a 5-year note, 500 per month, 60 months. Does that make sense? It's just math. Let's see how this looks. Okay, earning 4% and paying 6%. So the payments on your car loan payment are going to be $483 per month. The future value of all of those payments is going to be $28,999. That's the future value of what you're going to pay out of pocket to that. Now, What's the future value of the money in the bank earning 4%? It is $30,525, which means you made $1,526 while paying 6% and earning 4%. Why is that? Because the 25,000 in the bank is in an increasing balance, while the loan is a decreasing balance. Just math. Now, people say, well, Brian, wait a second. If I paid cash, I wouldn't have a payment to make on a loan. So why would I just pay cash? Well, the question is this, then back to that person. How'd you get the cash in the bank in the first place? Oh, I saved it up every month. Okay, so since you just emptied your savings account, no more cash, are you going to replenish it by saving every month? Yeah. Okay, well, then what's the difference if you're paying a loan payment or paying it back into your savings account? The cash flow is exactly the same, except with this example, you made money. Just math. So we've got to understand that concept right there to understand why would we want to be the bank. All right, so what is the money multiplier method that we're going to be going through here today? So the first section is going to be the machine. What is the machine that makes this thing function? The next thing is the marathon, because when you look at building wealth, it is a marathon, not a sprint. And then, of course, the millionaire method. How do we build wealth and how do we build generational wealth with the infinite banking concept? All right, let's dive into the first one, the machine. So when you look at infinite banking, think of infinite banking like a car. Okay, the infinite banking concept. A car has wheels, hopefully, brakes, especially hopefully. It's got windshield wipers, a radio, seats, steering wheel, all that kind of stuff. But what does the car or the infinite banking concept need to go down the road? It needs an engine. So in this scenario, what is the engine that makes the infinite banking concept function? It is nothing more than a specially designed dividend paying permanent whole life insurance policy from a mutual insurance company. All right. You might be saying, well, Brian, why is life insurance the best vehicle for infinite banking? Think of it this way. There are other vehicles that you can use it for, but this one is the most efficient. It is the most long-term proven method as well. Additionally, who is the most common entity doing infinite banking or using whole life insurance policies? Because there are other vehicles out there that can do infinite banking. There are things like IULs, VULs, there are 401k loans, things like that. So if you look at all the vehicles or all the engines that can work, guess which one they're buying? Banks, by the way. Banks have more whole life insurance, infinite banking, by the way, than they do their real estate and buildings combined. I'm talking trillions of dollars potentially. Do they know something that we don't? Of course they do. So we're going to do the same things, by the way, banks are doing with this concept, and wealthy families have been doing for over 100 years. All right. So how does money flow? So I already showed you how you can make money earning 4% while paying 6%. It's just math. But once again, our minds don't really think of it that way. It's like, wait, really? You can do that? Yes, you can. It's just the way that it works. So to understand that, let's kind of look at how a bank uses your money. So let's just use $100,000 as an example. You deposit 100K at a bank at 4%. Now, that's a liability to the bank because they owe you 100K and 4%. So what does the bank do with your money? They do not just sit on it. They put it into motion. So maybe they loan it back out at 7% on a home loan. But what does the seller do? Puts the money back into the bank. What's the bank do? Puts it back out in a car loan. What's the dealer do? Right back into the bank again. What's the bank do? Right back out again, maybe on a home remodel, home loan, something like that. The contractor, employees do. What do they do? Put it back into the bank again, etc. And the money just keeps on going right back into the bank and right back out again, to the point where banks make, it's like 500% more off of your money than they're paying you. It's just math once again. And banks do have to disclose this. So I believe, so someone said last week, I think that they still have this up on there. But you can go to BauerFinancial.com and you can find how much banks make on the money that you leave there, between 400 and 1,300%. So if banks are making that kind of money off of your money, but paying you a smidge of that, why wouldn't we want to be the bank for our own transactions? So now what I want to do is I want to look at an example of what this looks like in practice. So we're going to talk about cars because a lot of us have bought cars. Now, this couldn't be real estate. It could be something else, but I want to use a car as an example. And I'm going to keep this very conservative numbers-wise and very simple, but how you can get all that money back for all the cars you'll drive and own for the rest of your life. So let's look under the hood really quick. So what you're going to see here on the right-hand side of your screen, if you can see this, is what is called a tabular detail. It just kind of gives us some numbers. So there's a few things I want to make sure that we're clear on. So one, when you think of a life insurance policy, because this is life insurance, infinite banking uses that, whole life policies, there are things called premiums. We call them deposits or premium deposits. Why do we say that? Well, a premium sounds like an expense. A deposit sounds like something you can use, which is the case here. When you deposit into the policy, you get immediate access to cash value. Okay. And I'm going to go through that down in a little bit how that grows, but you're going to see cash value immediately available. Okay. Also, when it comes to life insurance, the engine, okay, people think about, oh, age. Is age a big deal here? Not really, no, because we're not focusing on the age and the death benefit, right? Because death benefit is not what we're focusing on. We're focusing on the living benefits of the policy and what you can use it for. Now, is there a limit to like how old you are to do this? Yes, it's about 73 years old, by the way. Is there an age is when you can start it? Yes, it's about 3 weeks old. So you have to have a social security number. That's pretty much it. So just kind of keep that in mind. So let's go through and see what this looks like. Okay, in this example, this person is going to deposit, premium deposit, $10,000 annual premium per year. Now, every time they do that, they're going to get access to cash value immediately, and it's going to grow and compound. That's called dividends, by the way. So these policies earn a dividend rate every year that comes in on top of it and builds the cash value, and that's what compounds. Okay? So 10,000 goes in for 7 years. Now, at year 3, at the end of year 3, so it's been 3 years now, this person has a little bit over $25,000, about $30,000 of cash value in their policy. And they say, hey, you know what? I'm going to go buy a car. So they go to their bank. It's a guaranteed loan, by the way. They're not going to a traditional bank. They go to their bank. They get the funds within 24, 48 hours, and they go buy the car with cash, by the way. Now, they're going to be a responsible banker, and they're going to pay back their loan like they would any traditional bank. So let's just say they're going to pay it back at $500 per month, 5 years, that's $6K per year. So what is the math so far as to what we have done on this infinite banking policy? Well, deposits are $70,000. We also paid back a loan of $30,000. That's $100,000 that has gone out or into the policy, essentially. But remember, we also had $25,000 we took out as a loan. So that was actually money we got back. So in reality, we only have put in $75,000 into this policy. Now, this is very conservative numbers, by the way. In most cases, our policies are a lot more efficient than this. But once again, I want to be conservative to show you how this works. Now, keep in mind, if we put in 75, we've also recaptured 91 cents of every dollar so far that we put into this policy. It's available to us as cash value. Now, where this really is really fun is what would happen if instead of buying a car, what if you put that into real estate? You put it into an investment, into a cash flowing asset. Nothing on this page would change. The cash value would still grow the same. You would not interrupt the growth. It would still keep growing, yet you'd have more cash flow from the investments. So just keep that in mind. But once again, we're using a car as an example. Now, let's look at years 8 through 12. This is where it gets really crazy. So in years 8 through 12, let's just say that we're not going to put in any more deposits. Now, I don't recommend that, but I want to show you how these things can grow. So no more deposits go in. Okay? But here's the thing. The cash value still continues to grow because it's earning dividends. It's still compounding. You're not putting any more into it. It's still growing. Pretty awesome. Now, let's say that in year 8, you have maybe a daughter turns 16. My daughter's going to be 16 next year. Lord help me. So she wants a car. But let's say we go and we get another loan of $25,000 out. Once again, our cash value still grows at the same rate. We do the same thing. We pay ourselves back at $500 per month. So what are the numbers in this scenario? Well, we put $30,000 back in as a loan repayment. We also took $25,000 back out. So we really only put in $5,000 in years 8 through 12, but the cash value between years 7 and 12, the cash value, what we have access to, grew by $23,592. That's a pretty good growth, by the way. $5,000 turns into $23,000 and change. But here's the other thing. How much have we put into this policy in these 12 years? 75,000 years 7 or 1 through 7. And 5,000 years 8 through 12. That's $80,000. But what do we have access to at the end of year 12? $91,000 and change, but we only put in 80, and yet we own 2 cars outright, and yet we've also built wealth at the exact same time. And what could you do with $91,000? Could you invest that? Put it to work? You could do that every single year, by the way. So that's a quick example of how this can work. Because if you just paid cash for the cars or got a car loan, you wouldn't have built wealth. All right, now when it comes to infinite banking, there's three rules that we always want to make sure that we are following. So one, this is a big one, pay yourself first. Most people, your money comes into your bank account, you turn around and pay all your bills, credit card companies, pay everybody else first, and you pay yourself last. In this scenario, we want to pay ourselves, deposit into the policy, pay ourselves first. We want to be a responsible banker. Pay yourself back with interest. So there's interest on the loan, pay that back with the interest. Be responsible, be a responsible banker. And last, recycle and recapture your money. What does that mean? Use the policy. That's what that means. Use the loans, recycle your money back through the policy. Make sure you're capturing as much of your money into this thing as possible. Yeah. So this works for a car. What else does it work for? Now, one of the other big things that I look at that destroys wealth is debt. Taxes, of course, all that kind of stuff destroys wealth, but debt or interest associated with debt really destroys wealth. So if you want to build wealth, two steps, two simple steps. Now, I'm not going to say they're easy, two simple steps. Get rid of bad debt, use good debt to build wealth. There you go. Now, is that easy? No, but let's simplify it. Let's look at an example of how infinite banking can get rid of bad debt and start to create wealth in your life. So in this example, once again, this is a very, very ultra conservative example. This is a doctor, 45-year-old chiropractor. He has 9 third-party debts. His total debt is $478,000. Not a small amount, by the way. Total payments each month are $5,777, or almost 70 grand per year. If this doctor was to pay off all these debts as planned or as scheduled, it'd be 19 years, a long time, right? But keep in mind, if this person is in the mindset of using debt to live their life, are they going to get rid of the debt in 19 years? No, they're probably going to always have it. They're always going to have it. So keep this in mind. So this is going to be a fun example. So in this example, this doctor said, hey, I'm going to do a policy, okay? And that policy, I'm going to do a $25,000 annual premium deposit, okay? Now I'm going to pause here for a second. People say, well, Brian, $25,000, oh my gosh, that's huge. I can't do that. Well, keep in mind, this is a doctor. That's his numbers. Your numbers are going to be your numbers. The other thing people say is, well, where did he come up with $25,000? I can't really do that. So in this scenario, this doctor, he had money going out to other buckets, retirement buckets, IRA, 401k, other things like that he did not really like, but that's the only option he felt that he had. So what he really did is he took money or cash flow that was going to this bucket over here, and he moved it over to infinite banking instead. So his cash flow didn't change. What changed was he paid himself first. Not the 401k, not that thing over there. He paid this thing first. Call that paying yourself first. So he deposits that's in there. Now, when you deposit into the policy, you immediately within 30 days have access to cash value. Now, once again, this is a very ultra conservative example. 14,863. In the ones that I build, because I didn't build this one, you'd have access to almost $20,000 of cash value. So keep in mind, a bit different, but the conservative. So with his policy, his bank, what's he able to do? Well, he goes and he borrows out the $14,000 out of the policy. That's cash in his hand, and he goes and he pays off debt. So he pays off the Discovers, Lowe's, and part of the Nordstrom card. Okay. His monthly payments have decreased by $448. Now, here's what happened. So when he paid off those debts, he created a loan inside of his policy. So keep this in mind. There's a loan in the policy that he had that's going to grow as we do this. Also, the 448 per month. Now, we do not want that money going out the door. We don't want that going out the door. We want to recapture that. Remember, recapture and recycle. That's rule number 3. Recycle and recapture. So we're going to capture that 448 back into our policy. And that's going to help grow the cash value or replenish it, I guess I would say. Okay. So in year 2, this is month 13, so beginning of year 2, he puts another $25,000 annual deposit in. The cash value jumps up by $16,571. The payments back to himself of 448 have put $5,374 back in. So the total cash he has available is $21,945. Takes that out. Nordstrom card is paid off. Wells Fargo is paid off. Private loan is paid off, and part of the BMW is now paid down. His monthly payments have dropped by $1,917. So you can see now his loan in his policy has gone up. What do we do in month or year 3? Year 3, 25 goes in, cash value jumps up by 25 and change. The payments of $1,917 back to himself is $23,004. So the total cash that he has available to borrow back out is 48,545. Pays off the BMW with that loan, West Marine, and part of the condo. Now his monthly payment has dropped by $3,677. Kind of getting how this is going? All right. Now I'm going to pause here because remember, we said this is a marathon. This is a marathon. How much did we put in? $75,000 so far. How much have we taken out? Around 55,000. So how much is in the policy earning you dividends, compounding and growing the policy? Is it $20,000? No, it's still the same amount, $75,000, because this is uninterrupted compounding. So it's still growing at the exact same rate. All right, let's go to year four. Now, all right, year four, 25 goes in, cash value goes up by 26,000 and change. The payments of 3,677 back to himself, his policy, is 70,439. So what's he do? Borrows it back out, wipes out a big chunk of the condo, debt drops. Now, his monthly payments do not change. They don't go down. Why is that? The condo and the house are amortized mortgages. If you pay a principal down on those things, the monthly payment does not change. So even though he paid down the condo, it didn't change the monthly premium. So the monthly amount does not change here. So year five, same thing goes on. 25 goes in at the very beginning, annual premium. And you can do monthly, by the way, it doesn't matter. Cash value goes up by 27 and change. The payments back to himself is the same, 44,000 and change. And the total cash that he now has is 71,225. Now he wipes out the entire condo and a big chunk of the house. Monthly payments drop by 4,556. Very cool. Now, something changes in year six, and this is going to be kind of fun. So this doctor, he's like, wait a second. I love this concept. This is amazing. I'm wiping out debt. Keep in mind, the debt is still in the policy. But he goes, I'm building wealth. It's growing. I love this thing. I want to do another policy. So he decides, and you can do this. He decides to lower the premium on the first policy from 25,000 down to 10,000. But if you look here, you'll see it still went up by $13,000. He only put in 10,000, but it went up by 13. He does a second policy now. Same thing. 25 goes into that one, and the cash value is 14,863. The payments back to himself of 4,556. It's 54,000 and change. The total cash he has available is 54,678. Now what's he do? He borrows 76,000, pays off the house. All of his bad debt is wiped out. His monthly payments are now all of his. Now, here's what happens, because this is the beginning of year six. Now, through year six and through year seven, what does he do? Well, he takes the monthly payment of 5,777 and he pays back his policy loan. So he replenishes the cash value. But keep in mind, the cash value is always growing no matter what. You have a loan, don't have a loan, it doesn't matter. His cash value is always growing. And so now he pays that cash value down. And now what's he have? He has multiple six figures of cash value that he can now put to work in good debt or investments. So he borrows, creates cash flow, and he becomes his own bank to create more wealth. Now, a lot of people say, well, Brian, that's a lot of stuff going on right there. How do I figure all this out? So we do have software called BYOBvault.com, or the vault as we call it, that will map out all the stuff that I just showed you right there on the screen. So there is no guessing on what to do on a monthly basis, what debts to pay off first. It'll tell you what to do. So that's a really cool software. You can go check it out. It's called BYOB, be your own bank, BYOB. Vault.com. You can check it out there. And it does a lot of other things, a lot of other resources inside there, a lot of other softwares, that kind of stuff. Also, we have what is called the implementation team. So they're agents just like myself, and they are going to work with you to show you how to use the policy. So it's not like you get a policy and good luck, go have fun. Now we work with you and show you how to use these things. If you have an, hey, I want to go do this, or I want to go buy this, or I want to structure for this reason, we'll show you how to do it. And so that's an ongoing service that we provide. There is no cost to it, of course, for you. It's not something that you have to pay for. All right, so that's that. So let's look at the millionaire. So because when you want to start building like generational wealth, the question is, what if I have no bad debt? What if I don't need a new car? Can I still benefit from privatized banking or be my own banker? Well, yes, because guess what? That's when the fun begins. That's when you start to build wealth, create that legacy. And that's ultimately what most people want to get to. So how do you use your policy to create wealth? Well, there's lots of ways. Now, you might have to go learn some of these things, but there's some ways that you can do this. So active real estate investors, as an example, think of like wholesalers, flippers, buy and hold. commercial properties. So I got clients that are doing apartment buildings, renovations, mobile homes, which I want to get back into really badly. Private funds, private lending, so lending to other investors. So it's kind of funny. Be your own bank to you, be your bank to somebody else. It's kind of fun how you can do that. I'm going to show an example, by the way, of this in a moment. A lot of business owners do this. So if you're a business owner, you want to be taking money off the table and putting it somewhere, but you also want to be able to use that money. So business owners can use this to take money off the table for down the road, but also use it to grow their business at the exact same time. I do have some stocks and options traders that are using this to fund their accounts. They're doing typically options like weekly or sometimes even daily. Startups, I have clients that are starting up their own businesses using this as the seed funds. Even equipment flipping. I don't think a lot of our clients are doing this right now because the market's changed a little bit, but there's always new strategies out there. So now what I want to do, I want to do an example of private lending. So what does it look like to private lend with infinite banking, and how do those returns look? So in this example, you're going to see on the screen what is called a tabular detail. So you're going to see age, the year of the policy, and the contract deposits or premium deposits going into the policy. You're going to see over here on the right-hand side, increase in cash value and net cash value. Net cash value is what we focus on. Increase in cash value is also what we focus on too. All right. So a couple things. So you're going to notice on this one, see where it says $150,000 contract premium year one. So you're saying, well, wait a second, what's going on there? So in these policies, you have a premium deposit. In this example, it's $50,000 per year, monthly, quarterly, annually, however he wants to do that, or this person wants to do it. But you also have the option of doing what is called a dump-in or a lump sum dump-in up front. In this example, it's $100,000 that went into the policy at the very beginning, and that overfunds the cash value very quick, very fast. So you have access to a lot of cash value within 30 days. So he did a $100,000 dump-in and then a $50,000 premium so he has access to a lot of capital. Now, what I want to look at is how does this function down the road for a private money lender? So I'm going to look at year 8. Okay, at year 8, the cash value went up by $66,000 and change. Cash injection was $48,594. So he put in $48,000, but it went up by $66,000. So that is a 37% cash on cash return. Who wants to have a 37% cash on cash return? I do. That's pretty awesome. Now, keep in mind, this client is a private lender. So they were lending before they did the policy. So before they were doing the policy, they were getting a 12% return on their lending. But by doing the policy, they're getting a 37% cash on cash return plus the 12% on the deal they're lending to, and they're paying back their policy at 5%. That's a 44% cash on cash return. All this person did differently was they put their money into the policy first and then lent it back out. That's pretty much it. That's pretty much all they did differently. And now they're making a 44% cash on cash return. But here's the thing. In the years prior to year 8, they were using this cash value to private lend. I'm just showing you what it looks like as this thing starts to grow and starts to compound. So once again, nothing different except where their money went first. So would you rather make 12% or 44% by being your own banker? So give me a 1, a yes, whatever in the chat box, if you'd like to have a 44% cash on cash return. Yeah, I mean, we got people doing this all day long. So yeah, it's pretty cool. But that's a quick example of how that can work. Now we would show you how all this stuff works. So what is the millionaire method? Really? Okay. It's how you eat an elephant, one bite at a time, and I always say that the man at the top of the mountain, that person that we're looking at that we want to get to, he didn't fall on top of the mountain. He climbed his way up. You got to take that first step and get there. Eventually you will be there. Sometimes it takes, you got to understand how this works first. That's the mindset, right? So this machine, it works for debt and expenses, vacations, homes, taxes, everything else. So you can use this for investing, by the way. Okay. So how do you do that? How do you know the numbers? How you do what I just showed you? Well, once again, we have the software that maps this out. So we have one called the gain projector that's going to be inside the vault here soon because the vault just came out this year. So we have a gain projector, which you can put in investments into the gain projector, and it'll forecast the best way to flow the money with that investment to make sure that you're getting the best return possible. So that's a pretty cool thing right there. So, and then we can map this out for you in multiple different ways. But yeah, we do that for you. So now that you know how this works, I believe that everybody should do this or at least understand how this works, because infinite banking is a different way of thinking about money. That's knowledge, by the way. And one of the most important things that we can pass on, not just to ourselves, of course, but to those that are around us, is that knowledge. So I have a lot of people that want to create money and pass it on to their kids. That's great. But pass on the knowledge about how you got the money, how they can maintain it and grow it. That to me is extremely valuable, extremely important right there. And so that's why I believe these presentations are so valuable, because we're sharing this knowledge. One of the best ways to start building wealth is stop working so hard for your money and get your money working for you, or be better with your money. Because if your money's going out the door to bad debt constantly, you've got to switch that. Because I have some people that I've mentored. I used to mentor financial education. They would say, "Hey, Brian, I got this money I want to invest." I'm like, "Okay, why do you want to invest it? I want you to tell me where to invest it." I'm not going to tell you where to invest, but I want to know why you want to invest. Oh, because I got all this bad debt. I want to pay it off. Very rarely can you ever pay off bad debt by investing, because bad debt is very high interest. And to invest money at a rate that would be high enough to pay off that debt, not very common, not real easy. So yeah, so you got to look at the bad debt first in most cases, and then start putting that cash flow back to work. That's really kind of how I look at it. But yeah, so like most of us are on the bottom, working hard for the money, but then you want to make that switch to having your money work for you. Awesome switch. All right, so some quick things about infinite banking. So we didn't talk about the death benefit. I'm going to circle back to that. The loans. So how do the loans function? Now, by the way, they do not have to be repaid, but we're going to talk about those. When the dividends are growing inside your policy, that's tax-free growth, by the way. So that's awesome. I don't mind paying taxes. I'm a lot happier paying a lot less, though, by the way. These policies, as I mentioned before, are exempt from judgments and liens in most states, so it's a protected asset. And you can even create tax-free retirement in income, tax-free income in retirement. So I'm going to go through that. Now let's kind of focus really quickly on why the death benefit is something that we want to focus on. It's not the main thing, but it is a bonus. So it's increasing generational wealth day one. So in this example, this person is putting in 20,000 per year for the first 5 years, and then at year 6 they drop it down to 3,000 and change. But look at the death benefit. And this is the end of year, by the way. Look at the death benefit at the end of year 1. 20,000 goes in. The death benefit is $325,000. Now, God forbid something happens to this person in the first year. That $20,000 would turn into $325,000 tax-free, guaranteed for whomever she chooses. But look at year 5. $100,000 has now gone in. The death benefit is $483,000, almost 5 times what she's put into it. And what you'll see is in year 6, she dropped the premium down, deposits down to $3,000, but look at the cash value. It's growing larger and larger and larger, exponentially more than she puts into it, and it will do that for the rest of her life. So think of this person. This is a 42-year-old female. Think about when this person is, 85 years old, how much that death benefit is going to be. A staggering amount of money versus what she put into it. 5, maybe 10 times what she put in. So pretty crazy, but that's guaranteed generational wealth right there. So if you understand what I just said, think about the Rockefeller family. Every time a family member is born, they do policies, and they do multiple policies throughout that person's life, knowing that $10 or $1 million, doesn't really matter, is going to multiply 5 to 10 times tax-free guaranteed. And they do this on every single family member. Think about how much wealth they are generating tax-free guaranteed every generation. It's staggering. So there you go. All right, let's talk about the policy loans. So the policy loans, they are actually guaranteed. Basically, there's no credit check, there's no approval. Ask and you shall receive. It's a simple login, request it, and it shows up in your account. Pretty simple. They're also private. This is a big deal. They do not show up on your credit report because this is a private strategy, not on your credit report. So no one else knows about this. It's a private loan. There are no minimum or maximum loan payments required. You are the one in control. So if you miss a payment, well, wait a second. There is no payment required. So you can't miss a payment. So nothing happens. So you choose when and how to pay back the policy. Yep. Pretty crazy. How can I fund my bank? All right. You can do it monthly, quarterly, or annually. That is the premium deposit. There's a minimum that you have to do to make this work. That's 10 times your age per month. That's not the recommended premium. It's just the minimum that you have to do to make this work. There's a range. The upper range depends upon the individual, typically right around 20% of your gross revenue income annualized, divide by 12 for monthly. So if you make $100,000 per year, your maximum premium you can qualify for is $20,000 annually, divide by 12. I think it's $1,800 approximately. for monthly. There you go. Now, in addition to a premium deposit, you can also fund it with a large upfront dump in. Call it 10,000, call it, well, it can be zero, of course. Call it $10,000, call it 100,000. 90% of that goes to the cash value within 30 days. So when you're funding the policy, I mean, 70 to 90% of it goes to the cash value within the first 30 days. Now, keep in mind, dividends are coming in every year based upon your deposits, and those also build the cash value, but those compound uninterrupted. Pretty powerful. So the thing I always ask is, would you put in $1 to get $3 out? Now, what do I mean by that? So let's look at this policy right here. So this is a $10,000 annualized premium and a $50,000 dump in. Now, on the page here, this is called a tabular detail. These are end of year numbers. You have a $60,000 win in year one. At the end of that year, this person, including dividends, has access to $55,000 and change. That's over 90% of what they put into this policy. Well, look at year two. Year two, 10,000 goes in. Cash value available went up by $10,607. Now let's go to year 11. It gets even more powerful. 3,000 and change went in because they dropped the premiums down. Premiums cannot go up, by the way. Premiums cannot go up. They can go down though. Okay. 3,000 went in. Cash value went up by $10,590. Would you want to put in 3,000 to get 10,000 back out? Yes, pretty awesome. So that's how these things can work because of the compounding. All right. It's pretty awesome. Now, this is a quote by, I don't know if Warren Buffett actually said this. I haven't been able to find it anywhere, but I'm probably going to remove this quote from this slide because I don't know if I quite like it. But it says, if poor people would just do what the rich people do, they wouldn't be poor anymore. I don't really like the quote. That's why I'm going to remove it, because it's like, here's how I want to look at this. If you had the knowledge of the wealthy and took action on that knowledge, you could build wealth like the wealthy. That's my kind of personal quote. That's how I like it. Another question I get is, why would I want to work with you, Brian? So I've been teaching infinite banking now for about 9 years. I've been doing webinars, presentations, stage speaking for a long time on it. Here at the Money Multiplier, we have an entire team that works with you to set up IBC. It's not just a few people in the back, in the back room. We're about over 30, 40 people. Our team also is one of the largest, if not the largest producer of infinite banking in the US. We're very large. We do a lot of policies. I currently have about 100 clients in underwriting right now, so quite a few. We provide ongoing support and services. There's no cost to it. There's no fees, nothing like that. We don't charge you. But yeah, so that's who we are. And we work with you on an ongoing basis. And we only do infinite banking. Another question I get quite a bit that I want to make sure we put a fork in is an IUL or VUL infinite banking. That's an indexed universal life or variable universal life. Flat answer is no, they are not. IULs and term insurance pay some of the highest commissions, by the way, very high commissions. They're very volatile. Now, we take a big cut in commission to do infinite banking, and we only do infinite banking. But if you want to understand IULs, go do your own research. But here's what I want you to do. One, type in IULs class action lawsuits. You're going to find them. People lose money. Type in Kyle Busch, the NASCAR driver, and IUL. He just lost $8 million and is suing the companies. IULs, in my opinion, are very dangerous. They have a lot of complexity to them. They're sold very inappropriately, and they're manipulated, and they don't perform as they're illustrated. Very rarely do they ever perform like they say. So just be very cautious with those kind of things. Do your own due diligence. And even, and I don't do IULs. I can't even touch them. My insurance wouldn't even let me do IULs because it's so risky. So there, keep that in mind. So one thing I want you to think about is this, is that in life, there's one of two things that are going to happen to us. One, we're going to live. So if we're living, which we are right now, we're talking, are we better off with or without infinite banking? I believe we're better off with this in our life because it has living benefits. But we also know that we are going to die. That's part of life. Are we better off with or without infinite banking at that point in time? Well, yes, because we're passing on something of extreme value that otherwise would not happen. So I want to circle back to this quote. The problem in America isn't so much what people don't know, it's what they think they know that just ain't so. So hopefully you learned something on this presentation. Hopefully you kind of got a different way of thinking about money. And, I showed you something that might be able to help you accomplish your goals, help solve some problems, that kind of stuff. So the next step is this. If you want to ask questions, you can do that right now. If you want to hop on a call with me and go through your scenario, go through your situation, see how infinite banking can help you, help those around you, change your course of direction, schedule a call with me. So hopefully you guys learned something. Once again, you can go to brian.beyourownbanker.com/TBCT. With that, everybody, I appreciate everybody being here. Appreciate all of you and all the questions. And for those that I've seen again, love seeing you guys here all the time. So with that, Happy New Year, stay safe, and look forward to talking soon.